Hi everybody, Jamie here, and we're continuing on from the last video. What I wanted to do was to, first of all, address the issue of the ceiling. Um, to be quite honest, folks, I have no idea what this thing does and what it's there for. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the manual right here, and what I'd like you to do is just pause, read it. Okay, so go ahead, hit pause. Okay, all right. Now, when you read this right here, the ceiling. Hopefully it made about as much sense to you as it did to me because this makes no sense at all. I have no clue why you would want to operate at a level beyond 0 dB full scale. Not sure. I'm trying to get into some contact with some folks over there to say, hey, look, give us a straight answer as to what the ceiling thing does. The only thing that I can think of is that it's something in the analog world that would be useful for whatever reason. I really don't know. To be quite honest with you, I'm just going to skip it, and I'm not going to try to pretend I know what it does, because first of all, I don't want to give you the wrong information, and second of all, I use this plug perfectly fine and get the effects that I would like without it. Okay, so to be quite honest, I leave that right where it is. So what I'd like to do is just move right on to the EQs, okay, because that's really what's important here. First and foremost, you have a low and a high with two adjusts or an adjust and a frequency for each band. Okay. Now, one of the things that you have to realize is that this parameter down here, single and multi, is going to affect how those EQs operate. So what I've done here is I have an EQ in Ableton that shows you what sort of EQ setup this is. First of all, in Vintage Warmer's EQs, they are shelving EQs, which means what you see here, like shelf, right? That can be boosted or attenuated. So the adjust is really just controlling how much is boosted or attenuated, right? Easy. The frequency sets where that boost or attenuation begins. Now, I'm not sure exactly what kind of filter they're using here. If they're using like a 4-pole, or a 6-pole, I have no idea. It could have a very sharp Q. I'm not really sure. My ear is not so trained where I could tell exactly what kind of filter they're using. But let's just suffice it to say that the shelving EQ that they have here is represented like this. They're going to control the frequency and the boosting attenuation, which with an EQ that looks essentially like this. All right. So you'll have shelves. Like once it gets down to where it's supposed to be, everything below that is at that level, or boosted above that level, whatever. Okay, so like if it's boosted at 4, then this is going to be boosted at 4 up there above, where what's that number right there? 5.6 kilohertz. So if you go to 5.6 kilohertz, right, like around there on your Ableton EQ, then that's what that EQ would look like right there. All right, so the EQ is essentially a shelving EQ in a 3-band setup. So you're probably saying, all right, well, where's the control for the mid? Well, the mid is controlled by your drive. All right, that's your main deal right there. So essentially, if you have a signal going through this, and the mid range, like right in here between like 500 and 4,000, is really where we have most sensitivity, right? So if you drive that, you could always boost or attenuate the low or high, whatever to suit your needs. Okay, so that's essentially how that works. Now, let's see here. That's single mode. Now, if you go to multi-mode, multi sets up a frequency so that this is the crossover between the mid and the low. Or, yes, the mid and the low right here. This one would set the crossover frequency between the high and the mid. Now, you're probably saying, well, what's the difference? Okay, well, here's the difference. When you switch over to multi-band mode down here, you are given on the back of the Vintage Warmer more control over some of the parameters. All right, and these are the parameters that you have more control over. First of all, you have control over the saturation levels of your low, mid, and high if you're using that. Also, the release time of your compressor. All right, for multi-band only. Got it? So here's what this means over here, saturation. Say you want your low to be a little bit lower in saturation. What this means is that less of the signal is going to be sent to the limiter. which means that the compressor is going to be handling more of the signal than the limiter. Let's say your mids, you want to go more towards the limiter so that you get that nice distortion in the mid-range. You would boost that. So in the positive, this is being pushed more towards the limiter. So the limiter is handling more of the signal in the mids. Whatever you set like in your low, mid, and high range on your frequencies, right? The highs are the same thing. So in the negative, it's being more compressed. All right, so like let's go over to our compressor again, right? Let's turn this on. If you are in the negative on your saturation, that means that the compression is working more, right? If you're in the positive here, it means that you're boosting the signal more towards the limiting over here, okay? Now, I don't know, honestly, if anyone, I know I won't. I don't know if anybody's going to have that much specificity, okay, with their sound. No idea if you're ever going to need that, okay? But at least you know now what that is. In the positive, you're sending it more to the limiter. In the negative, you're sending it more to the compressor, right? It's being less saturated. Now, the release time, let's go back to the front. When you set your release time over here, okay, and you're in multi-mode, you could very easily control the release of your compressor by band. So let's say you want your lows to be a little bit longer to release the compression, right, so that they're a little bit more controlled. They don't pump as much. You might set that a little bit higher. So it would be 1 3/4 times whatever this is set at. Okay? So essentially, if you set this on 4, haha, watch this, and let's say you want that to be super long, you can set that to be 16 times the length of your attack. See, there's a lot of, let's just say that there is a lot of flexibility with the release times here now, right? So let's go back to the other side and reset that. All right. And the same thing for the mids and the highs. If you want your release time to be maybe a little bit less, right, a little bit shorter than your attack in the mids, but maybe a little bit longer in your highs, you can have a more specific control, all right, over the release times. Again, I'm not sure I would ever use that. I really don't think I would. But who knows? I mean, it might get so good, you know, later on, like in a few years, if I'm making really good tunes, I might need that kind of specific attention to the distortion. Who knows? Okay. I find that I can leave these as is. All right. So there you go. Now, what we can do is, now that we have a good idea how the EQs work, we can talk about the mix. The mix is very easy. It's just a wet-dry knob. That's it. I think you probably, if you're watching this video, you know what a wet-dry knob is. Output, essentially, is going to help you boost the signal from within the plug itself so that you don't have to necessarily worry about boosting like the fader, okay? So, for instance, let's say you have a really nice mix, like at 60%, and you want to maybe modulate this. I think that you could probably in most of your VSTs you can modulate it so that it's wavering a little bit. You know, like you can maybe LFO this over the course of like maybe 1.5 decibels or something like this, right? So that might be an interesting thing to check out. You could even control the mix probably with a like a macro, right? Like set the mix to be a little bit lower during your verses, and maybe your choruses or high spots you would go up to 60. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's up to you, right? But that's what the mix is going to do. So let's take a look at some sounds and see what this thing does now that we know what everything actually does on it. Okay, so I'm going to first of all turn it off and let you hear the sine wave that I have, just flat, right? I'm going to turn this up all the way too so that you can hear it. And now I'm going to turn on my vintage warmer. And what I'd like to do first is just let's put a little bit of knee in. And you can see that there's already a little bit of reduction in my gain reduction meter. I'm going to drive it a little bit. You're not noticing much change, right? It's just kind of a louder sound. Well, we haven't changed the speed yet. Remember, our speed here is set at the highest level, which means the fastest tape speed, highest quality. Longest compression, attack, and release settings. Watch what happens when we slowly slow the tape speed down. Listen to what happens to the quality of the sine wave. did on the compressor in the first video. I'm just pushing this up towards, you know, the limit, right? I'm driving it. I'm also got a knee where the compressor's starting it a little bit early. Hear how there's a nice warm sort of buzz around that tone? Now that's only at 40% mix. This is what happens with 100%. Listen to the change from high to low. There's your almost original signal just being driven as we go down through the quality. That's what's being added, is that hum and that compression and that pushing it up towards the limit, right where the brick wall is. See that? Okay, do you understand how that works? Now, if you understand that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce this level here, and I have a drum kit here that I copied out of Stylus RMX. I just kind of resampled it, and this is pretty much what it sounds like. Now, I'm going to actually reset everything in my Vintage Warmer because I don't want anything to be operating here. I want it to be a clean signal, as if it's not going. Okay, here's the drum kit. Like I said at the beginning, you want to leave a little bit of headroom. All right, because when you're working with this, you don't need to be full on, you know, hot signal. Okay, so there's the drum beat. Now, what I'm going to do, since the thing is on, I'm going to drive it a little bit, just to drive the signal. I mean, it's just getting louder. There's nothing happening to the sound. It's just getting louder. Okay. Now I'm going to get the knee going so that the compressor will kick in, and you can see up in my meter here that there's a little bit of gain reduction. Right? Now, the reason why it doesn't sound that different is because the speed is at the highest quality. The tape speed is going to be very high quality, so the distortion isn't going to be as present. But listen to what happens when, again, I lower the speed. It's going to open up the saturation and really excite all of the drums. Listen. Here it is at 0, and I'm going to do it really quick. I'm going to just get my mouse to do it really quick. Ready? Here it is with 0, 100, and 0. There's a little bit of a change, right? A little nice and subtle. Now what we can do is, because we got a very fast attack time, set the release time to be a little bit later so that it sounds more natural. Because again, we want transparency, right? Alright, so I'm kind of liking the way that sounds so far. What I could do is I can always A-B it. So just turn this off and on here. Okay, good. So I'm going to EQ now. I'm going to take a look at my... Okay, I got like around 100, 200. Okay, so I'm going to kind of boost around 200 in the bass. I want that to be a little bit more present with the saturation. Okay, so I'm going to boost this by a couple of dB. Maybe a little bit higher so it catches a little bit more at the top of that kick. Okay, now I'm going to A-B it. See how it fattens up that bass? It's more present. Okay? Now, the highs. Well, the highs are, for some reason, are already kind of up there. I must have left that from my explanation of EQ. Best thing to do is to see where it is. Like, for instance, take it out. See where the EQ starts to actually react. So like around around 7 or so, right? Now I can boost for a little bit more transparency, because I'm in multi-mode too. Now if I switch back to single mode, there's a little bit more, I don't know, to me there's a little bit more natural feel with multi, so I'm just going to keep it on multi, okay? Now what I can do is I can adjust the mix to be not so present. A-B it. Wow, that's a change. Great, okay? So I kind of like that. But just to show you the change in the sound with 100% mix, what you can then do, as you can see, I already have a dry example set up here at the same exact of the same exact drum loop without any processing on it whatsoever. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I am going to, first of all, I'm going to boost my wet signal all the way so that it goes right to the 0 dB full scale. Right, so I'm going to play this. That's about right there, okay? Because again, what we want to do is we don't want to be fooled, all right? We do not want to be fooled by the change in the volume. We want to go at the same volume, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate this now, and I'm going to make sure that we are hearing it at equal levels. All right, so now I have to boost this a little bit more. So that's about right, okay? Now, what I could do is I can A-B each of these. Now listen to the difference between the saturated sound and the clean sound at exactly the same monitoring level, okay? Here we go. Here's the original. And the wet signal with the vintage warmer, 2, 3, and. Going back. Okay, now, you should have heard a huge difference there. It seems like the perceived difference is that it's louder. And that's the thing. It's the perceived level, right? It's the perceived level. You're perceiving it to be louder because it's more harmonically rich and because there's this tool that's put on it to make it more distorted. All right, now here's what we can do. We can scale back on the mix of our warmer to A-B and see what sounds better. All right, even though the dynamic level is not going to change. Okay, so let's try it again. Okay, so as you can see, what I've done here, I didn't like the mix being at 100%. Notice how it was like really, really hot and just really saturated. Now, what I did was I toned the mix down so that the original signal is only, or I'm sorry, the compressed signal and the saturated signal is only 40% of the original. So we have a lot of the original in there, a great majority of it. And the output was boosted so that I didn't have to touch the fader. So now what we have is a really nice sounding saturated mix of our drums, okay, that I chose from Stylus RMX. And it's much more full, much more saturated, and we have worked it out to make it sound very, very big with one plug, Okay, so there you go. There is the PSP Vintage Warmer. I'm hoping that this helps you understand what it does and how to use it. Very subtle, just nice and easy. Little bits and pieces here and there. Okay, hope this has been a great help, and see you either at Sonic Academy or see you on YouTube. Okay, bye.